busy week. And right now, we are going to talk to Alex Rodriguez, who joins us from Texas. Hi, Alex. Good morning.
Hello, guys. How are you?
We're doing good, man. Thank you for doing this, Alex. I don't know how much of this you have done with Seattle Sports Radio. I was telling Salk the story earlier of looking over at the sidelines way back in 1996, my first college start against the Arizona Wildcats. And who was over there? Oh, there's Alex Rodriguez over there. And we bumped into each other along the college football trail a few different times at Miami games and everything else. But thanks for taking the time and just kind of right off the bat, man. What do you think of these Seattle Mariners that you've gotten to watch here in 2024?
Well, I like not only this year. I like what they've been doing the last few years. Obviously, they have a flagship player in Julio Rodriguez, J-Rod, who's one of the best in every way, both on and off the field. I love what they're doing with their starting pitching. They have a closer. You love Julio to get going a little bit more, maybe swing a little bit less with a swing and miss and give you a little bit more slugging. But, his past would tell you that he should have a very good second half.
Could you? One of the reasons we really wanted to talk to you was because of Julio and trying to come up with anyone who might understand what his world is like at his young age, with his amount of talent, with his marketability that he has specifically in this city. And there is a lot that screams Alex Rodriguez might understand what Julio's going through. Could you take me inside what you think his world is like right now?
Well, I mean, look, it's when I came up, Brock mentioned 1996. My first year was 94. I was 18, and there was a guy playing center field by the name of Ken Griffey Jr., who was only 24 and was the best player in the world, very much like Michael Jordan of baseball. So, look, the Pacific Northwest was some of my fondest times. I know Julio loves Seattle. I certainly miss the Mariners. The Mariner fans are absolutely best in class. And I think he has a unique opportunity to be a Hall of Fame player, win a championship, and to do it all in one city would be incredible, not only for Julio, but for that great fan base up there.
How do you handle all that is on his plate as that young superstar in this market?
I think being in Seattle helps a lot. I think the fact that you're not in a New York or Boston or LA allows you to grow up at a pace that is conducive for greatness. And I think we've seen that right now with Julio. You stay in the process. You continue to work hard every single day. You avoid the big mistakes. Like, obviously, I made a couple big mistakes in my career that have hurt me tremendously. So obviously you want to avoid that. But so I spent a lot of my time with the next generation talking about my mistakes and how do you avoid the big mistakes. And, stay focused on the process, not so much on the results. And Julio has an incredible head on his shoulder. He's also very, very smart and centered and humble.
I was looking to see if you had gone through a slump like the one he has for the first half of this year. I couldn't find anything quite like that. Your numbers are really spectacular at the beginning of the entirety of your career. But, right after that 96 season, the next year wasn't as good. Your OPS dropped back by almost 200 points. Do you remember that year? I mean, you still hit 300, so it's not like it was a disaster. But do you remember that year and what it was like and how you, quote unquote, snapped out of it for whatever it's worth?
Yeah, statistic-wise, that was probably the worst year of my career over the course of 20 years. I think I hit 23 home runs and drove in not even 100 runs, I think 84 runs or something. There is something to be said about a little bit of a sophomore slump, and I think that just requires a little bit of, re-engineering in your imagination, because as a rookie, they're going to challenge you. And they don't want, in my case, Ken Griffey or Edgar Martinez to beat you. So they're going to be hyper aggressive with me. I made them pay that year, my freshman year, my rookie year. And then sophomore year, the league adjusted to me, and I came back in 98 with the 40-40 season. So 97 in many ways was an adjustment year. It was like a tough sophomore year. But I was able to overcome it with, preparation, hard work, and pretty much it.
Did you get help? Because I would think it's got to be hard, especially now with all of the voices that can help. And you've got your hitting coach, you've got your personal hitting coach, and we saw Oswaldo Diaz here a couple weeks ago working with Julio specifically. Everyone has an opinion on what you need to do differently. How do you know who to trust and what to change?
I think that's an impossible question to really answer, but I will say less voices is better. And I would focus on the big three. I know that a lot of these analytics office are going to the direction of numbers and terms we can't even acronyms understand and almost rewriting history. But I'm going to go back to what I know best. The very best players that I ever saw play were guys like Edgar Martinez, Ken Griffey Jr., and Jay Buhner. And the one thing that all three of them did is they hit for high average, especially the first two, Griffey and Martinez. They hit home runs, they drove in runs, and they scored runs. And to me, those are the four stats that help you win the very most. This idea that batting average doesn't count, I think, is foolish, and I think it's stupid. It doesn't make sense. This idea that swinging and missing doesn't matter, I think is foolish, and I think is also stupid. Edgar Martinez taught me that with two strikes, if you have to choke up, put the ball in play, give yourself a shot, and especially in October when you have elite pitching, swing and miss guys. If you have guys that swing and miss during the season, that doesn't forecast well for October. That means you're going to swing and miss probably 2x than you did during the regular season.
You know the voice, if you're a baseball fan, and certainly here in the city of Seattle, you know the voice of Alex Rodriguez. I'm going to go back to something you said about Julio, I think, in your first answer, because I'm sure it piqued the interest of some of our listeners. It piqued mine, Alex, because I was here for all of that extent of your career. And you said for Julio, it would be great to play all in one place, have a career that's all in one city. Is that a reflection a little bit on your past and some of those decisions?
Honestly, look, Brock, I came from, I saw my mother collect food stamps at the age of 12. I came from the very bottom, right? So my hero was my mother. When somebody offers you $252 million, this is not an indictment towards the Mariners or towards me or towards anybody. Look, a kid that comes from the projects, how do you say no to $250 million in the year 2001? Maybe some of your listeners would. I couldn't. I had a responsibility to my mother, to my family, and it was a decision I'm proud of, even though I miss Seattle tremendously. I had tremendous stability there. Fanfare was incredible. And, I'm disappointed that things ended the way they did, and I hope that one day, with new ownership now and management, which I have a very good relationship with, I'm a big supporter of the Mariners. I follow them closely on TV. Obviously, the guys that do your TV work are really, really good. And I hope that one day I get to come back and celebrate, at least thank the great fans of the Mariners for what they did for me.
Is there anything about that decision and that moment that people don't know about that you wish they did?
No, I mean, look, they were just outbid by, almost a few $100 million. It's hard. It's funny. It's just that's the time. I look at the bigger contracts that you're seeing in the NFL, in the NBA and Major League Baseball, and today they're celebrated. When I got that deal, and Brock, you remember, I mean, I was like, pariah, 101. I was like the epitome of greed. And I thought that was unfortunate. And in many ways, maybe I think Kevin Garnett and myself were a little bit ahead of the curve, where we were villains instead of heroes. Today, when players sign big contracts, they're like heroes. And that's kind of a cool thing.
How about as we fast forward to hitting today? You mentioned some of those things, and old Rick Riz is still up in that broadcast booth, spinning it, doing an amazing job. And you'll hear Ricky talk about hitting it the other way, right, and choking up, because he made those calls with the great Dave Niehaus, with Edgar Martinez for all of those years. Hitting in today's baseball, Alex, how, as you sit and watch it on a night-to-night basis, and we'll watch it tonight in the All-Star game, how do you hit in 2024?
I think the biggest issue, Brock, is how the game is being taught. I think the players today have never been more talented. The youth in the game is just incredible. And I know it sounds cliche, like we always say this is the best group of young players, but my goodness, 38 what I call freshmen at the All-Star game, first-timers. And I'll never forget my first All-Star game in 1996. I was 19 years old. I see my hero, Cal Ripken, across the way. He gives me a big hug. He welcomes me to the All-Star. Now, one thing is to be part of 750 players in the big leagues when I came up. The other part is to be one of 50, one of 60 at the All-Star game. That's a whole other validation, another level. And I know that when I left Philadelphia, an old veteran stadium there, with the hot turf in Philly, I left like a new player, and I finished that year in '96 where I ended up second in the MVP and won my first batting title. I think a lot of it because of the confidence I gained from the All-Star game. But how the game is being taught today is they are actually making it very kosher to swing and miss. And when I came up under Lou Piniella, Griffey, Edgar Martinez, Joey Cora, it was vital to make contact. It was vital to be a good two-strike hitter. We actually took the leadoff hitter today, Quan, from the Cleveland Guardians, is hitting 310 with two strikes. The league is hitting 150. If you're hitting 150 with two strikes, Lou Piniella will call you in his office at the old Kingdom and say, young man, you're driving 45 minutes to Tacoma. And if you're hitting 240 or 250, under 250, you're going to Tacoma. I see guys getting, 10 years extension, hitting 210, and I really honestly can't comprehend that.
Okay, so let me dig into that, because for years, Moneyball sort of changed the way we looked at numbers, obviously, specifically the way we looked at on-base percentage compared to batting average. Do you think there is a path back to paying more attention to stats that have been sort of passed over by the next generation of people making decisions and teaching the game?
Yes, I do. There's a path back, and I think we're on our way back. In many ways, industries, businesses, anything, the politics, no matter what the main themes are, I think there's a sense of over-adjusting, and the pendulum goes too far to the right. That's exactly what happened in baseball with this whole kind of fever of Billy Beane and Moneyball. But the one dirty little secret that everyone forgot about Moneyball is the three pitchers, right? Is Hudson, is Mulder, and is Zito. That's really and Corey Lido, who was in before, who unfortunately, passed away, the late Corey Lido, who was also a very, very solid number 4 pitcher. It wasn't the hitting. I played against those teams, in the West, basically my first 10 years, and it had nothing to do with the hitting. It had all to do with the big three. And so that was a little bit of a misleading case study. But you're seeing veteran managers like Dusty Baker, Bruce Bochy coming back into the game. You're seeing teams that are making more contact and having starting pitching going to the 6th and 7th inning. This nonsense of swinging and missing and a quality start being 4 innings and 4 1/3, 3 2/3. It's nonsense. You cannot win a championship like that. And I believe that two things are evergreen in sports that forever will be true. You need dominant, strong starting pitching that can get you to the 6th or 7th inning, because in a month of October, when you have 10 or 11 guys in the bullpen, you're going to wear those guys down. By the middle of October, all those arms are hanging. And the other part is you need to make contact. The only way you can win in October is you got to put pressure on the defense. You got to move the ball forward. 90 feet is a premium. And this nonsense where you're always playing for the long ball, I think, what happens when you go for the long ball, you have a lot of strikeouts and a lot of losses.
Well, if the Mariners are to win a World Series and get to a World Series, Alex, something they've not been able to do, they've got that first box checked pretty darn well. They've got some of the most dominant pitching, number 1 in WHIP in all of baseball, young frontline starters that are the envy of most organizations. The second box, they do have to check. So if Justin and Jerry are on the phone and reach out to Alex Rodriguez and say, hey, man, you see all these guys all across the league. If you could add a bat or two to this lineup over the next couple weeks, is there a guy or two in baseball that you would see in a Mariners uniform that could maybe help this fan base get to that World Series?
Well, I don't think Jerry and that ownership up there needs my help. I think Jerry's one of the best great minds of baseball. He's doing a fantastic job. Look, there's never a perfect thing. You have budgets. You have to architect the team. You have a 40-man roster. It's much harder than we make it sound here in a radio interview, and I certainly cannot do Jerry's job. But you need Julio to be Julio, and I believe he will. And then you need to complement him with players that, you need more hitters hitting, 270 and above. A team hitting, sub 240 is probably not going to do it. You need more pressure, you need more contact, you need more speed, and you need to put runs on the board. And you're right, they have the first and most important element of a championship title team is strong pitching with a hell closer. You have a superstar in center field. Now you got to just build around them a little bit. And the good news is I think guys that make contact and hit for the high average, not necessarily home runs, are not only gettable but also affordable.
Because the league doesn't value them, as we were just talking about. Yeah,
that's right.
It'll be an interesting path forward. I do have to confess, Alex, that I think you might owe. I grew up in Boston. I should have stated that before we started the interview.
I'm now telling you.
I did. I grew up in Boston.
You buried the lead.
I did. I know, and I'm sorry. But I think you might owe my parents some dishes and maybe glasses. I will, just if you wouldn't mind taking you back to October of 2004. when the Red Sox were leading Game 6, and there was a play at first base, and the ball got away. And my dad, I was sitting with my dad at the moment. I was 26 years old. He got up, took his dinner plate and glass from the living room where we were watching, went into the kitchen, threw both of them into the sink, breaking everything in the sink, and screaming about how this team had done this to him every year of his life and how he was done forever and he hated the Yankees and the Red Sox were the worst thing that had ever happened to him, only to have my mom and I keep watching and, horrified, stunned silence. And eventually turn and be like, Dad, they're getting together and they're overruling the call. And he had to sheepishly come back in and all red-faced and embarrassed and now having ruined his sink and glasses and dishes and everything else. So I guess I want to say you owe him some glasses. But at the other hand, you really kind of gave me a great story that I've told for years. So I just got to say thank you for that moment, if you don't mind.
Well, you're welcome. And I got to tell you the second part of that story. I did exactly what your dad did that night at home when I got home. So we got a lot of glasses broken on both homes, but for different reasons.
Those
Alex,
games took over 5.5 hours, Brock.
Yeah.
Can you imagine playing a baseball game that was 5 hours and 45 minutes long?
No, especially not today. Hey, last thing, Alex, thank you for the generosity of time and jumping on with us as well. Can I just give you one last platform to speak to these Mariner fans? I have said it, the 12s in Seattle are amazing. The football team and the Super Bowl, it was amazing. The parade was remarkable. But, having grown up here and been a fan since I was born in 1976 and watching the 90s and the early 2000s, and I told Salk, man, you just wait, 45,000 just rock this place every single night for this team. If you could say, and you've alluded to these great fans, and Julio alludes to these great fans, what makes these Mariners fans so great? And I guess I'll just give you one last chance to kind of speak to them.
Yeah, I think Brock is just the fan base over there. They're very special. They're one of one. They're also passionate. They're also very smart. They're very loyal. The fact is that, the Seattle Mariners are not just the Seattle, Washington fan base. It's the whole Pacific Northwest and including parts of Vancouver and some of Canada. So it's an enormous fan base. They do tremendous TV numbers. The loyalty is very sticky. And again, I wish that one day I have an opportunity to go up there with my daughters and thank them. And I still think about my number 3 jersey that I wear and is so special to me. Is where I started my career. Is who drafted me. Roger Youngward drafted me number 1 in 1993 after he drafted Ken Griffey number 1 in 1986. I thought we had some of the most fun, exciting teams. It builds a lot of young people's memories, Brock, like yourself. And from the bottom of my heart, I just want to say a big thank you and good luck and go get a championship this year.
And some really nice response from our listeners here. Zach says, respect for Alex just went up substantially. I loved everything he said. Thank you, says another. Being a youth baseball coach, this hits home. Thank you, A-Rod. Keep preaching. Others saying, I've never resented A-Rod for leaving. Some saying I did, and this changed my view of it. So thanks. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for your comments, and hopefully we can do this again.
Hey, guys, and if you get up to the finals, World Series, or before the World Series, we'll be up there with Fox, and maybe we'll tee it up and do it in person.
Let's hope that happens. Sounds good. There's Alex Rodriguez. Yeah, from your mouth to God's ears. Let's see if we can make that happen. There goes Alex Rodriguez, kind enough to join us there for some time and reflection on his time here in Seattle, why he left, how he left, and kind of where the game is at right now. We'll be back.